Hey cats, it's Ed Michael Myers Bud here. Today I've got a terrible treat for you, the viewers' nightmare shoes of 2022. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for joining me. I'm your horrific host, Eddbud. I've got my nightmare shoes video for you. You know I love doing these every October. One of my favourite treats. More of a treat than a four-finger Kit Kat and a nice warm cup of coffee while I stood on the terrace watching a non-league football match. I've asked the viewers as to what their nightmare shoes are for 2022. I've collated together the data like some sort of mad scientist, and I present it to you today. Help the channel to continue to grow by hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell below for notifications when we launch those new videos for you. You can really help us out too by giving this video a thumbs up, like, and also sharing it with your running buddies. I am the Count. I will count through the top 5 shoes, the top 5, worst 5 maybe? Starting off with position number 5. It's the Hoka Rincon 3. I actually quite like this model, I've got to be honest. It's sort of light, nimble and carefree, but there was one big flaw in the design. Viewers experienced some terrible arch pain along with some blisters on their toes from this model, which was somewhat narrow in comparison to other Hoka shoes. I guess you could say it was a bit like a foot coffin. Runners also had a bone to pick with the outsole. Mentioning it wore down extremely quickly and the grip was about as good as a bowl of slime. It's a more budget-friendly shoe, but with these issues, is the hard-earned cash better spent elsewhere? I think we've only had upper updates on the Rincon series. I mean, we've had 3 of them, pretty much the same midsole and a little bit of rubber on the outsole. Is EVA the way forward? I do question that. Many companies are moving away from that to some newfangled stuff. EVA just feels like it's been left in the past a little bit, aside from some very specific scenarios and utilizations. I think we need to put it away under lock and key and forget about that one. Bit like a terrible 50s B movie. Number 4. In 4th place, it's the aptly named Brooks Ghost 13. Maybe 13 was just an unlucky model. This spookily named shoe appeared quite a lot in the comments section, with runners suggesting that the heel lining just sort of disintegrated and disappeared into thin air. Don't worry, I'm back. Imagine that, taking your shoe off and just finding that the padding and lining's just gone. A bit like a spectre disappearing behind you. Will be interesting to see if this shoe model is rejuvenated by some new foam underfoot. I mean, it's got to be a reasonably popular model to make it to 14 different versions, right? It's a bit like those Saw films that they kept making. In 3rd position, it's a shoe that appears to be for some tastes and not others. A bit like a vampire likes to drink a nice Merlot. The Invincible Run Flyknit 1 and 2. Seemed to be a bit of a Marmite shoe, this one. You either really love it or you hate it. Viewers commented that they found the midsole to be a bit like deadly quicksand, something that Indiana Jones might encounter. God, that 4th film was a bit of a stinker, wasn't it? The Crystal Skull. They also found that there was too much padding in the upper and it had quite a clunky, uncomfortable feel. It sort of felt like you were Frankenstein's monster, you know, clunking around. Perhaps a little bit like my Invincible Run customs there. A number of viewers found that they had blisters on their toes after using the shoes, and one viewer even lost a toenail as well. Only happened once to me, and it was not nice. Can't say the V2 has provided me with any of those scares, but I can see why a number of viewers sent them back after those agonising experiences that you found with the Invincible Run. I think a few people seemingly had problems with the shoe just falling apart as well while they used it, just after a few runs. I think the midsole started to come away from the upper, and that heel clip as well just sort of detached from the rest of the shoe. I mean, that's not what you expect from a shoe that costs you 160 quid, is it? You're going to be feeling pretty hard done by. A bit like if you bought some attaché case from somebody wearing a sheepskin coat, then realised that the combination for the case was inside. A real nightmare, that one. The Invincible Run from Nike is position 3 in today's list. Position 2, in 2nd place, is the Clifton series from Hoka. Now, some really nasty issues here from some viewers, so viewer discretion advised. Some commented that the shoe had some serious hot spots in different places as well. We got those after some longer runs, some bulbous blisters as well, arch pain, and the worst ever, a flappy feeling. Those were some of the major bugbears that people had with the Clifton series. Also, I think probably one of the worst ones is that they found it boring and uninspiring. I mean, running should be fun, shouldn't it? Exhilarating, but if you put some shoes on your feet and they make running feel like that, it's just not even worth it, is it? You may as well just stay in and eat some giant Wotsits. Or you could watch a really boring documentary about how they make paper clips or something. Quite a few people found the fit of the Clifton quite odd now as well, considering this is one of those fan favourites from some years back. It just runs a tad long and it's just not true to size. I was really surprised to see how many votes actually that were cast by the viewers for this shoe. I just think it's been overtaken by perhaps more modern foams. Again, EVA, do we need to lock it away in the tower somewhere? A bit like the trapdoor. Do you remember that cartoon? That was fantastic.
Buck, feed me.
Maybe we need to put the EVA down there and hope it goes away. Dust it under the carpet. I think it's useful still, but for very specific situations. And perhaps running is not one of those now. Just some better daily offerings out there that've got a better fit, perhaps even cheaper as well. I think the Clifton 7 was the last one I tried out. That gave me some terrible arch pain on a longer run, and after that I didn't want to touch the shoe again. I shall stay safe in the shoe sanctuary with Beast. I shan't be venturing out there for fear of those blisters and arch pains. Now, before I unveil Frankenstein's monster, which is the ultimate nightmare running shoe of the year, I've got some honourable mentions of some of the shoes that freaked out the footwear fanciers. Lots of you seem to hate those lace loops on the first few eyelets of the Adios Pro 3. You find it a bit hard to dial in the fit, and some of you have even had some heel blisters from that very minimal area around the back of the shoe. Lots of popped AirPods in the Tempo Next Percent from Nike. It's a shoe I only recently stated was one of my favourites in my grading the Nike shoes E through to A. Lots of runners found they got some terrible heel pain and it just simply didn't work for them. I can understand that. Not every shoe's going to work for every runner. And it's also as loud as a clap of thunder. Runners seem to dislike the tractor-like traction of the Zoomfly 5. They felt it was overpriced and as rigid as a corpse. And it made their knees feel like they were merely a skeleton with no muscles or skin. Well, they didn't actually say that, just said it hurt their knees, but you know what I'm getting at. The Streak Fly was another one that was hovering just under the top 5, like some sort of lurking, nasty atmosphere. One runner's shoe fell to bits after a couple of outings, and others found the laces cut into their feet. It reminds me a little bit of that film Psycho, but replacing the protagonist with Stuart Pearce instead. So now we unveil the most hideous shoe of 2022, as voted by the viewers. Could be a bit of a surprise for you, this one. It's the Nike Alphafly Next Percent. I do recall it being one of the favourites too last year, and we have a situation where more people now have tested it out and clearly found it to not work for them all that well. Loads and loads of you said you had terrible arch pain in this shoe. It has a very prominent arch. I've mentioned it numerous times in my videos. Sometimes though, the arch pain simply appears just out of nowhere like a jump scare. Many other people also commented about the really uncomfortable fit of the shoe. I think it was one that either worked really well for you or it didn't. I think it probably doesn't work so well for people that have a wider foot. That arch really does cut in. If you've got a flatter foot as well, you're going to be in for some pain. A couple of viewers even suggested they found the shoe a tad heavy for marathon running. There's just too much midsole there, too much material. Quite an interesting comment, that one. You have to consider that, you know, some of the fastest marathons that have been run are by Eliud Kipchoge wearing different variations of the Alphafly. Maybe it's just too honed to his specs and requirements, and that could confirm as to why we only had one viewer that suggested they had any problems at all with the Vaporfly Next Percent. Let's not forget this one too has a terrible price. It is very expensive. It's an expensive mistake to make. So that's the nightmare shoes for 2022. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. If you have, make sure you give us a like down below. Also comment as to some of the running nightmares that you've experienced over the years. A musical interlude for you. Now, don't listen to this one unless you like your music atmospheric and particularly scary. I'm looking at a track called Jesse by Scott Walker from his album The Drift that came out in 2006. Now, I've only listened to this album about 3 or 4 times. It's a pretty heavy listen. Don't expect the sun ain't gonna shine anymore or no regrets or anything like that. This is Scott Walker at his most macabre and ideal for today's running shoe nightmares video. It has these terrifying strings that sort of underline the whole track, and these really staccato electric guitar sort of stabs every now and then, and the vocal is ghostly, I suppose, almost like a spectre. You know, the whole album, The Drift, sounds like something out of a Silent Hill or Resident Evil game. There's this kind of creeping darkness around it. If you like being challenged by music, you know, this is an album to listen to. If you can make it all the way through this one. It's what I love about Scott Walker albums. You know, they are something else. Nobody else makes music quite like it. You're definitely not one to listen to if you're out running at night. Absolutely not. Put on some fun music like, I don't know, I'm Bean by Mr. Bean or something like that. But if you like some atmospheric stuff, go and check out Jesse by Scott Walker from his album The Drift. Okay, thanks for tuning in, people. It's certainly an Eddbud video today with that musical interlude there. That's going to challenge some people. Help the channel out by hitting that subscribe button and clicking the bell below for notifications. Give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. If you've enjoyed today's video, hit us up with a super thanks down below to help support the channel. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you